Hey guys, my name is Monique Garcia and I am the owner and founder of Browstetics Microblading Training Academy. Today I'm going to be teaching you guys how I map using the golden ratio method. The very first step of the brow mapping process is analyzing your client's eyebrows from the moment that they walk through the door. Human beings are not symmetrical, therefore you may notice asymmetry in your client's face structure, and most importantly, their eyebrows. Notice how my client's left brow is noticeably higher and how much more lifted than her right brow. Also, notice how her left eye sits higher than her right eye. When our client uses her forehead muscles to raise her eyebrows, her left brow raises higher than the right, and when she relaxes her forehead and closes her eyes, the same brow comes back down almost level to her opposite brow. Different expressions and muscles will change the brows drastically. This is why it's so important to observe and balance out the brows as much as possible. You may be wondering now, what is the golden ratio method in brow mapping, and how does it apply here? The golden ratio is a repeating pattern found everywhere in nature, architecture, the stars, and even our body. The golden ratio applies to the brows in the way that it will give us the perfect measurements for each unique individual. The first thing you'll want to do, wearing your gloves, is to use an alcohol wipe to clean the brows and the surrounding area around the brows in preparation for the brow treatment. This will allow our mapping material such as the wax pencil, ink string, and brow ruler to work efficiently and easily. Step 2 will be to use a clean new spoolie to comb through the brow area while simultaneously exfoliating the brows. Comb the brows so that the brow hairs lay in the direction that they naturally fall into on their own. Lightly exfoliating the brows with a spoolie will allow numbing that you use prior or during the treatment to penetrate the skin with ease. Next, we will begin the mapping process by marking the center line between the brows. When marking the center line, make sure that the line that you create lines up in the middle of the bridge of the nose, not the tip of the nose. The tip of the nose on many people is not centered and can be pointed more in one direction than the other. Notice how the center line that we create in this video is completely centered with the bridge of our client's nose. Following marking the center line of the nose, we're going to place our Beauty Angel's brow ruler onto our client's forehead, lined up accordingly with our center line. First, you'll take the brow ruler and line up the large middle line directly under the Beauty Angel's logo with the center line that you drew. Make sure that the ruler is directly over your center line. If it is not directly over your center line, your measurements will be slightly off. Once the two lines are centered, slowly bring your ruler up to the forehead to leave room for mapping and measurements. This is where you'll want to stick the ruler. Now that our brow ruler is in place, we can start our brow measurements. Take out your Beauty Angel's golden ratio compass. We will begin by using the long legs of the compass to measure our brow beginnings. Ask your client to open their eyes and look straight ahead. Line up the two legs of the compass with the beginning of the sclera, or where the whites of their eyes begin. Once you have that measurement, bring the compass up towards the center line without moving the legs of the compass. On the short legs of the compass, you will notice two inner small legs. Line up one smaller leg with the center line. The opposite smaller leg will give you 0.1 of the brows, or the brow beginning. So now you're going to draw a line for the brow beginning. Make sure that you're stretching the skin and taking your time to draw a straight line up and down, which marks the brow beginning. You will now repeat this exact step on the opposite brow with your compass to create the opposite brow beginning. Once you have completed both sides, line up each inner small leg with the center line to make sure that each of your brow beginnings are correctly measured out. For our next step, we'll be measuring out where the bottom of the brows should be. For this particular step, we'll be using our pinky finger to feel for the supraorbital ridge. The supraorbital ridge is a part of the frontal bone that is located above the eye. The prominence of the frontal bone creates our eye socket. It is very important to know where the supraorbital ridge is located and to be able to feel for where it begins, simply because this is where the brows should begin on our clients. You can see exactly where we are working on our client to find this point. On our client, you can see that her brow hair begins at this point naturally. Take note that this may not be the case for all of your clients when brow mapping. Once you have located where the brow should begin on the bottom line, draw a small line connecting with the brow beginning to about 1/4 of the way through the brow. You may do this while your pinky is down, or you may choose to lift your pinky to make the mark. Always make sure to double check the placement of this line. Once you have completed the brow, repeat this step on the opposite brow, making sure that the bottom brow lines are level. Now that we have the placement of our bottom brow line, we can create the top line of the brow. Your bottom and top brow lines should always be parallel to one another. To start, make a small line to mark where the top brow line will begin. This will also be a determining factor of the client's brow thickness. As you can see, we drew a small line to mark the brow beginning that is both parallel to the bottom brow line, but it is also almost perfectly lined up with where her natural brow hair stops growing. You will repeat this same process on the opposite brow. Notice how both lines line up with the same smaller marking on the ruler. This is how we know that both lines are level. Moving right along, we must now measure the ending point of each brow at the tails. You can see on our client that we have lined up our pencil slightly diagonal from the outer nostril, passing the outer corner of the eye, right up to the brows. You may also choose to use your compass by completely straightening out the long legs of your compass to create a straight line throughout each of the points we discussed. Once you have lined up the compass where you want it, slightly press into the skin to make a small indent. This indent will tell you exactly where to mark the tail endings. You can see that when we go back with our pencil, it lines up perfectly with the marking we just made. You may now repeat the same step on the opposite brow. You may also make the same marking on the opposite brow under the same measurement on the brow ruler. For example, when you see that our client's first marking lines up at exactly 7.5, you would then go to the opposite brow and make a mark under 7.5 on that side. This is where your compass really comes in handy. Open up the long legs of your compass to approximately the length of your brow. Line up the closest long leg to the center point, 1 of the brow, also known as the top brow beginning. Adjust the opposite long leg to be in line with point 3, also known as the tail end of the brow. Once both points of the compass line up with your existing measurements, you'll want to use the shorter legs of the compass to measure out where the arch of the brow will land, which is also known as point 2. Without adjusting the compass, place the closest smaller leg of the compass closest to the center line directly on point 4 of the brow, also known as the bottom brow beginning. Angle your compass so that the opposite short leg reaches the top of the brow. You can see that on our client, her arch is naturally located at the point we measured out. This is the beauty of the golden ratio method. Once your compass is placed on that point that you want it, make a mark with your brow pencil to resemble where the arch, the highest point of the brow, should be. You will now repeat the same process on the opposite brow. You may also choose to use the brow ruler measurements and apply it to the other side. For example, our client's arch lies around point B on our brow ruler. We could mark under B on the opposite brow to give us our brow arch on that side. So far, we have found points 1, 2, 3, and 4. We are now left with measuring out points 5 and 6. For point 5, simply place one leg of your compass on point 1 and the other leg on point 3. Bring the compass directly under the brow without moving the legs and place one short leg on point 3 and the opposite leg approximately halfway through the brow on the bottom line. This will give us point 5. Repeat this process on the opposite brow. Last but not least, point 6. Point 6 will indicate where we are slightly lifting the bottom line to create the lower arch on the brow. Place one long leg of your compass on point 2, the arch, and one leg of your compass on point 3, the tail. Again, move the compass down under the brow without moving the legs of the compass. Place one short leg on point 3, and the other short leg of the compass will indicate where point 6 should be. Make a mark and repeat this process on the opposite brow. We are now about to create a beautiful brow shape using all of our measurements. By using slow, steady movements, etch your wax pencil to create the lines of your brows. Make sure that as you draw your lines, you are simultaneously stretching the skin with your opposite hand in the area that you are working. When you're drawing your lines, you want to make sure that you're stretching the skin properly and that your pencil is nice and sharp. You want to use short etching movements to create these straight lines. Right now, I'm connecting points 1 to point 2. And as you can see, I'm making sure that the line is parallel to the bottom line. When you're going to be drawing on the other side, you have to make sure that you stretch the skin and that you use short etching movements to create these lines. As you're moving toward point 6, that's the arch point, so you're going to be lifting the brow a little bit more when you get to that side. We will now use our client's bone structure to draw the line connecting points 2 and 3. Take a sharp tip of your pencil and place it directly on point 2. From this point, you should be able to slowly glide your pencil along the client's brow bone to the tail end. As you can see in the video, our pencil glides directly with our client's brow bone. Once you have your line, go back and define it a bit more. Repeat the entire process on the opposite side, keeping your lines consistent with both the measurements and the first brow that you drew. Once you have your client's brows mapped out, you may remove the brow ruler. Be careful, as the ruler may pick up some of your client's hairs. Now is the time to go in with a damp Q-tip to wipe off any stray lines, being very careful not to remove your drawing. And this is not the final product, but it's the part that I'm going to continue working on. Okay. We can see that her left brow is still elevated, and we're actually going to create some balance there, because by tattooing the left brow higher, we're actually going to even increase the imbalance on her brows. So we actually are going to be lowering the left brow a little bit. Although that is a side that's active on her face, but we're going to be balancing this a little bit. Do you understand? How are you going to do that? If you find that you have to tweak any part of the brow, the easiest way to go about it is to use your pencil to add to a certain point and then go in with a micro swab to clean up the areas that you'd like to take off of that line. For example, when we sit our client up, you may notice that her left brow is still elevated slightly higher than her right brow. In order to balance them out more, we choose to add a little bit more to the top brow line on the elevated brow all the way across. We then went in with a micro swab to remove a portion of the outer line that you drew. This will slightly lower the brow to be more level with the opposite brow. We also slightly rounded out her left brow to match the roundness of her right brow arch. You may round out the arch by dragging the micro swab flat and nearly diagonal across the top arch. Before removing stray hair from your client's brows outside of the shape, make sure that you get your approval from the client. Also, get approval to remove stray hairs in general. Once you have approval, you may use an eyebrow razor to remove any of those hairs outside of your shape and to help make your lines more crisp. In order to completely level our client's left brow, we need to tweak the bottom line as well. We accomplished this by using the same method as on the top. We added a bit to the bottom line and then followed up by using our micro swab on the inside of the brow shape on the bottom line. This will slightly lower the bottom line to be more level with our client's opposite brow. You can never be too precise with your brow mapping, but also understand that our clients' faces are not symmetrical. Your brow mapping lays the foundation of your treatment regardless of if you're doing microblading or powder brows on your client. Without a concise brow shape, we leave room for error and unbalance. Take a minute to observe the final brow shape on the client. Notice the tweaks that we made and how they leveled out the brows much more than they were before. Even the smallest of changes can be necessary sometimes. Thank you for tuning in to our Golden Ratio brow mapping tutorial. We hope that you found this video helpful in your journey to creating beautiful brows.